see you all again. I'm going to be talking about the iPad today, and a lot of these things are going to apply regardless of the iPad you have. There are some things that are going to be specific to model, so if that is the case, I will tell you about that. The newest, what's called the operating system, the whole brains behind it, is what's called iOS. That's the operating system that the iPad and the iPhone both use. So the current operating system is iOS 11. That's the one that they just released fairly recently. And you'll notice, in fact, I did this on purpose. This is the Settings app. Let's see if I can do this without tripping. Right under Settings, I have General right there. And did you see the badge? This is called a badge. See that badge that says 1? So I currently have a software update that I could run. And I did not run that this morning on purpose because I wanted to show you what it looks like when you have an update to your operating system. So typically they will launch a new operating system generally around the time they launch a new iPhone because they want to be all big and extravagant with it. So they'll launch a new operating system, and then you'll see other little .2, .1. Those are going to be bugs and stuff that they fix later. So sometimes Siri won't work right, so they have to go in and fix it. So they, just like anything else, they have to work out the kinks after the fact. So I got there by the gear right here, which is Settings. Clicked on that gear. And then once I was in there, I went to the General tab, which is highlighted in blue right here. And then when I click on that, you'll see a software update. And if you have an update, it would be right here. Generally, I will plug in my iPad if I do an update. It takes just a few minutes. It's not too long, but I generally will plug in. So I'm not going to do that now because that will take time. But I just wanted to show you that this is where the updates would be. And you want to do the updates as they come out. If you see a red badge on that Settings app down there, just like you see on my Facebook next to it, if you see a red badge like that, that typically means you have an update to do. And you want to keep it updated so that'll keep it streamlined and working the best it possibly can. So this is, what I have is just an iPad. So now they have iPad mini, iPad, and iPad Pro. The iPad Pro has Apple Pencil, which you can take and write on the screen. It will immediately transfer it to notes. I had an older version of an iPad. In fact, I've had this about 2 weeks because I had an older version of the iPad and then realized that it was a dinosaur and it wasn't going to work anymore. I wasn't going to be able to do this. So I got this new iPad. It was a perfect excuse. So I got a new iPad. So my old one did not have Siri. This one actually is Siri enabled, so you can use it. If you have, down at the bottom, you have Siri. If you have that, if you don't have the little square in your button, then you should have Siri on yours. So I'm going to go over some basics today. If you have any questions, I will answer those at the end. And I will try to remember to repeat the question in case so everybody can hear it. All right, so there are 3 basic models. There are different sizes of the iPad Pro, 2 basic sizes. Then you've got the regular iPad, which is this one, with a 9.7-inch screen. And then the iPad mini. I'm going to flip it so that you can see it better this way. And I'm going to go over the basics today of the iPad and what you can do with it. So one of the first things I want to do real quickly is, I want to turn lock rotation so that when I turn my iPad now, it's not going to switch. That way this screen is not going back and forth while you're trying to watch it. So on your iPad, the first thing I want you to take a look at, you have a home button, which is right down here. Just like the iPhone, you've got a home button right down at the bottom. Then we have the power, wake, sleep button at the top. And then, of course, the volume here on the side. And you can actually use the volume buttons to take a picture. That's something you can do with it, too. So that you don't have to reach your finger around to the home button to take a picture. When you are in camera mode, you can use the volume buttons to take a picture as well. Now, this iPad has a front and rear camera. So the older iPads are generally just going to have a front camera, but the very old iPad, I don't even know if the very first one even had a camera, but they have front and rear, or they may have just had a rear. They've had so many different versions now. So this is your home button down here, your wake, sleep, and power button, and these are your volume right here on the side. So those are just the basic buttons that you have on your iPad. The home button will wake up your iPad. So if I have it completely dark, I can press it one time and it'll wake up my iPad. Then if I have it actually on sleep and I want to wake it up, if you have your fingerprint enabled on here, you can just tap it and it will wake up your iPad for you. So I have my passcode. I have a 6-digit passcode. Some people just use a 4-digit. You can either use the 4 or the 6. And then I've actually put in multiple fingerprints because it drives me crazy always just putting my thumb on there. So you never know what mood you're going to be in. So I'll switch it around quite a bit. This also, the home button does several things. It wakes the iPad from a slumber. It will exit you out of an application. So let's say I was in Safari and I wanted to get out of Safari. This is just I was looking at Zillow this morning. If I want to get out of Safari, the internet, I can just press the home button and it will get me out of there. The home button will also, these are your different pages of apps right down here. You'll notice I've got several screens. If I'm on any other page, like way over here, you can see that white dot is highlighted. If I want to get back to the very first page of apps, if I press the home button, it will bypass all the other pages and take me to the front screen right there. So this is where you want to turn or put most of the apps that you use frequently on the home screen. Because all you have to do is press the home button and it will take you back to that home screen. So the apps I use most frequently, I'm either going to place down at the bottom in the dock or I'm going to put on this home screen. You can put apps together in folders. That's a possibility too, and I'll show you that in just a moment. Now also with the home button, if you hold it down and you have Siri on your iPad, holding down the button will enable Siri. And I'll tell you one of my favorite things to do with Siri. I do it all the time. She is my personal assistant. You can set reminders with Siri, and I do it all the time. For example, this morning I forgot to take my medicine before I left. So if you hold down the home button and you say, Siri, set a reminder for 12 o'clock today to take my medication, at 12 o'clock a reminder will pop up on my phone reminding me to do that. So if I have an appointment, a doctor's appointment that I don't want to forget, you can even set the date. So I could do that on my iPad too. I could say, Siri, set a reminder for December 27th at 9 a.m. that I have a doctor's appointment, and Siri will set the reminder for you. She'll say, okay, I'll remind you, and it will pop up on the screen. So I use Siri reminders constantly, especially if I'm kind of on the fly in the middle of something and I don't have time to write it down on my calendar. I'll use a Siri reminder. Yes, I still use a paper calendar, even though I love my iPad and my phone. I like to see the big picture. Helps me a lot. So you can hold down the home button to enable Siri, to use Siri. You can ask Siri what the weather's going to be. You can just ask all kinds of questions. Don't be afraid of Siri. If Siri doesn't answer you like you want her to, if you just press the home button, that will end Siri. So you can just turn her off that way. Now if you double click the home button, click it 2 times in rapid succession, you will see all of the apps that you've had open recently. If I click it once again, I go back to my home screen. So if I double click the home button, you'll see all the apps that you have had open, and you'll also see over here on the right-hand side what's called the control center, and I'll explain that in just a minute. If you want to basically kill an app, if you want it to stop running in the background, if it's taking up, slowing it down or taking up too much, if you have a data, I don't have mine on the data plan, but if you want to close out the app completely, if you double click the home button and then scroll up, it will close that app. So put your finger right in the middle of the app. See, I have my finger right smack in the middle of the Snapchat app, right here, and I scroll up. Clock, put your finger in the middle of it, scroll up. It will kill that app, or close it out. So any apps you can do that with. So you see I can close every single solitary app. I have too many apps open anyway. So you can open all or close all your apps that way. Okay, so now if I have them all closed, I'm just going to have a blank screen. So the control center, which is over here, I just unplugged my microphone. Okay, the control center, which is right here, is going to have basic shortcuts to commands that they think you're going to use most of the time. This is airplane mode. This turns off the Wi-Fi, turns off. If you have it connected to the network, it will turn that off. One of the good things about airplane mode is it conserves your battery. So if you have a network-enabled iPad, if it's on AT&T or if you have it on Verizon, and it's roaming, it's looking for service, sometimes that will really drain the battery. So you can put it on airplane mode, it'll keep it from doing that. Wi-Fi, right now my Wi-Fi is on. If it's blue, it's on. This is something called AirDrop. This is where I can share files with somebody. This is the Wi-Fi, so you definitely want that to be enabled when you're here because that's what will allow you to get on the network. Anytime you can use Wi-Fi, you want to, even if you have a network-enabled iPad. Even if you can get on it, like I have a tablet at home that is connected to my Verizon account, but I disabled the Verizon connectivity because my daughter was using it driving down the road and using my data. So we just use the Wi-Fi capability and it will pick it up wherever you are. It will pick it up. So if you're out and about and you go to a different place, it will pick it up for you. It'll pick up the Wi-Fi signal. In fact, when I got here, oh, for Pete's sake, I can't let it go to sleep again, I see. So when I got here today, it immediately picked it up. And you can see the Wi-Fi is on right here. This little thing is your Wi-Fi indicator. That's what's going to tell you it's on. So back to the control center. This is Bluetooth. This is for short range connectivity. So we have a soundbar downstairs in our family room. I will connect my iPad or my iPhone to the soundbar and listen to music. That's for short range. It's just going to be within the house. It's not going to be really long term. But Bluetooth, wireless headphones, I have some wireless headphones that I'll connect to the Bluetooth so that I can listen to music from my iPad or my phone and not have to stick around, not have to stay tethered to it the whole time. This is lock rotation. That's what I just turned on. Since it's red, that means that it is enabled right now. So no matter which way I turn my iPad, the screen is going to stay one direction. So that's handy if you lean your iPad over or if you're kind of shuffling around when you're trying to read and you don't want it to switch back and forth. If you turn on the lock rotation, that will keep it from switching screen back and forth. I turned off all the sounds on mine. That's what the bell is. For notifications, if you have any notifications coming through, anytime a news something feed pops up or you get a text through iMessage, anything like that, the bell is going to ding. It might ding. So you want to turn it off if you don't want to hear anything. Now another temporary way to do that is right here. This is Do Not Disturb. So I actually have Do Not Disturb enabled from like 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. So it's not going to make any noises, ding or otherwise, between those hours. That's a quick way that you can turn it on and off. So if you use Do Not Disturb, it means that I'm not going to get any notifications coming into my iPad right now. I'm not going to have any news pop in, any messages, anything that's going to ding. This is just a timer or the clock. So you can see that you can set a timer. So if you're in the kitchen cooking, doing something, and you want to set a timer, you can get to it. Also in this app is the alarm, stopwatch, any kind of features that you need there that you'd want to use. And then camera. This is your camera app. So you can easily get to, you can use your iPad as a camera, Or you can use your iPhone as a camera. I see plenty of people using their iPad. In fact, my daughter's teacher uses her iPad in the classroom all the time, taking pictures of the kids. They have an app that she can upload everything to and the parents can see it. So she's always taking pictures with her iPad and putting those up there. Here's the sound, up or down. You can take your finger and just manipulate that, go up or down, how loud or quiet you want it, if you want to turn off the volume. Same thing with screen brightness. Now you're not going to see a difference on here. It doesn't project, but if you take your finger and move the brightness up or down in that bar, that will increase or decrease the brightness. The brighter the screen though, the faster it depletes your battery. So just keep that in mind if you have it too bright. And then the dock connector down here, if you've got such a capability. So that is the control center. Again, you get to that by clicking the home button 2 times quickly. You can see the control center. Another way, there are actually 2 ways, just like computers. A lot of times there are multiple ways to do something. You can either press the home button twice quickly, just as I've shown you, to get to it. Or if you take your finger and you scroll up from the bottom, it will show you the control center as well. Scroll up. Make sure though when you do that, just make sure that your finger is inside. I always start in the frame, either the white or the black frame around the iPad. I always start inside the frame and scroll up from there. And that will allow you to get to the control center as well. Now if your iPad is locked, this is what's called the lock screen. So this is before you have put in your passcode or awakened it with your Touch ID. So this is the lock screen. So as soon as you press that wake button, this is what you're going to see. And this is before you're going to see your, keeps going to sleep on me. This is before you're going to put in your passcode. And all I have on here is the date and the time. There are things you can do from this screen alone, shortcuts. If I take my finger and I swipe it to the left, that's a shortcut to the camera. Because we all know that when you're trying to take a picture and you're trying to take it in the moment, you may not have time. Excuse me, wildlife, can you wait 10 seconds while I get my camera app going? Because think about if I get on my app and then I have to find my camera, that's going to take longer. But if I can swipe, just take my finger and swipe to the left, that opens the camera. So that doesn't unlock the iPad completely, but it does open the camera so that you have a shortcut to it. It does the same thing on the phone. If you have an iPhone, you can do the same thing. If you scroll to the right, you're going to see all kinds of latest news, and these are populated from all kinds of different places. I did not choose where I wanted my news source to come from, for example. It automatically chooses the top stories from different news sources. So it populated all of those on its own. I didn't choose NPR, ABC, Fox, People. That's what it's done for me. Scroll down, it's a shortcut to my photos. And then reminders, calendar. So if I wanted to get into my calendar, weather. Now, in order to get to one of these, if I want to see it, I just need to tap it and then it's going to ask me to open. So I will open it and the weather will pop up. I'll just use my fingerprint. That was a little anticlimactic, wasn't it? Because it's not opening all the way up. But if you scroll to the right, this is going to give you shortcuts to these notifications and apps, different apps that you use, that kind of thing. Tips. Now, if you swipe from the center, if I go from the center, it's going to give me my latest messages. I guess you can see where I get my news from. So if you press up from the center, it's going to, right in the center of your, while you're on the lock screen still, if I take my finger, put it in the middle and scroll up, it's going to give you all of your notification that you've got. So anytime I get a text message, it's going to come in here. For text messages though, that's only with iMessage. iMessage is Apple's messaging system. So if you enable iMessage on your iPad, if somebody else has an iPhone or an iPad and sends you a message, you'll see it on here. I won't see any messages from my husband on here because he has an Android phone. He decided to go his own way. He's rebellious like that. So he has a different phone than I have, so I wouldn't see his messages. I would see them on my iPhone because I can use the network to see messages or iMessage. And the interesting thing is the difference. You can tell if somebody has an iPhone when they send you a text message because it comes through blue. If the little text box comes through as green, then that's somebody without iMessage. So if they have iMessage, then it's going to be blue when you get a text. So I can enable iMessage on here. So scrolling up from the middle is going to give me all of my recent notifications. Now if I scroll down, or bottom edge, that's your control center, just like you did before. And then if you have an iPad Pro that has the Apple Pencil, you can just start writing on the home screen and it will put it in Notes for you. So it'll add it to the Notes app. Now one of the things you can do is choose how your lock screen looks. You're welcome to go check it out. So I'm going to go into Settings, which again, Settings is right here. It's up the gear. I'm going to go to Settings. Then I'm going to go to Touch ID and Passcode right here. I have to enter my passcode, which I have to remember. I think I might need to go to the 4-digit passcode because that's cumbersome. So I'm going to go to Settings, Touch ID and Passcode. And then in here, this is where I can change some of my features that I want to see. So see, allow access when locked. So I've got Today View on. If I turn that off, now when my iPad is locked, I can't see Today View. So that just might be important if you don't want somebody to be able to see your calendar or see that you have an appointment or something coming up. You can turn off the control center or Siri, because you can actually operate Siri from the lock screen if you have it like this, set like this. So you can turn it off, and so Siri doesn't work unless you have it open. So these are just access ways to access it when it's in the lock screen. This is also where you can add new fingerprints if you want to add a fingerprint to your iPad in order to unlock it. So I did 4, both thumbs and both index fingers. So you could add a second, third, or fourth fingerprint right here. It used to be the maximum was 5. I don't know if that's still the case or not. Okay. And of course, you know, to unlock the iPad, you have 2 options. You either type in your passcode or you hold your finger on the home button if you've set up the fingerprint enable. Now they did have, you know, the newest iPhone has face recognition. So you don't have to have a fingerprint now. You just hold it up and it sees you. But like anything else, they're having problems with it. Because kids are unlocking their parents' iPhones because they look like their parents. And so the features it's picking up, so it's allowing some children to unlock their parents' iPhones because they look like their parents. So I thought that was funny when I first heard about that. I was like, that's something they're definitely going to have to fix. Because I'm sure half the point is they don't want their kids to get into their iPhone. So there was a mother that was quite distressed that her son was able to unlock her new iPhone with just his face because he looked so much like her. All right, so next we're going to take a look at the screen. Let me see how I want to, go through this. So as you know, the App Store is filled with over 1 million apps for the iPad. But you know that these are the apps. You can customize them, get whatever you want on there. And I'm going to show you what you were asking about at the beginning. She was asking if there's not an app to something she wants, how to add it. And that's something that I had to do with my daughter's lunch menu from school. So you can add an app to your screen. You can kind of create a shortcut link. So each of these are apps which have been obtained from the App Store, and they are going to be customized based on what you like. And you can arrange them however you want. If you press and hold any app on the screen, they will start shaking. And you'll notice that some of them have an X in the top left corner and others do not. The reason that is the case is because Apple is very smart and they know that if we inadvertently delete the settings app, that would be a critical failure and we would be in big trouble. So some of them you cannot delete. You can't get rid of the App Store, so there's no X on it. You can't get rid of settings, so there's no X on it, or camera. But the other apps that you'll see with the X, you can get rid of. You can delete if you don't want them anymore. So if you press and hold the app, or any app, it's going to give you those selections. If you click the X, it's going to double check with you to make sure you actually want to delete that app. So it's going to delete all the data. So if you don't have it back up to iCloud or you don't have it connected to Facebook or something, it will delete all of your data. So you just press on it while it's wiggling, click that X, and then you can either hit delete or cancel if you don't want to get rid of the app. After a few minutes, they will stop shaking, or you can press the home button and that will stop them from shaking as well. You can combine apps into groups if you want to. So if I wanted to put the iTunes Store and the App Store together, I would again hold down the app until it starts jiggling and then slide it right on top of another app, and that will put it in a folder. And so they will be grouped together. So if you want to clean up your apps a little bit, you'll see now they are in a folder. Now when I clicked on that, it said lifestyle. I might not necessarily want it to say lifestyle. Maybe I want it to say App Store. So right here, you'll see the X next to it. You can delete what's in there and you can rename it. Whatever you want. Done. And then once I click out of there, it's going to show me that's the App Store. That's where my apps are that I want to go to. So I have actually inadvertently put apps together without meaning to. And so in order to get it out, you just click and press on it till it starts shaking again, and you drag it out of that box. And then it didn't work. Then it will put it on its own screen. But you'll notice that now the App Store box has one app in it. So I don't necessarily, if I have this with just one app in it, I don't want to have to press that and then press that app. So I can do the same thing where I press and hold till it starts shaking, and I can drag it out of the box as well, and it will completely eliminate the group. So you can group apps. My niece, you know how she groups her apps? She color codes them. So all the red ones, the yellow ones, I was like, how in the world? I mean, you don't memorize what all the colors are, so how do you know what's where? But if you want to move an app around, same thing. Press and hold it. And then you can actually drag it to the side, which can be a little testy. You can drag it and move it to another screen. Now, one thing I will tell you, that can be cumbersome, especially if you have multiple screens. So a lot of times what I will do, if I want to move an app from one page to the next, I'll drag it down to the dock, and then I'll slide over the number of pages I want it to be on, and I'll take it out of the dock. That's just a faster way, then you're not trying to get it to come back and forth. I'm going to move it back. Whoops, if you go all the way, you're going to get to there. So you can easily remove apps by holding them down till they start shaking. If it has an X, you can delete it. If it doesn't have an X, they don't want you to delete it. You can move them around by using the dock. You can group them by placing them together. Now let's say, for example, I have an app. Let's see, I'm going to go to, here, this one comes up. Okay, so let's find an app, or I've got a website that I want to keep on my home page because I always want to check back. So let's say I'm waiting for my puppy to be born, so I'm going to keep checking back, which I'm not. We just got her. She's 6 months old, so this is where we got her. So this is why this page is coming up. So if you'll notice at the top, you have some options right here. You've got several options. This is the page, like turning your page. This is going to refresh your screen if you want to refresh the page. This right here, the little rectangle with the arrow pointing out of it, that's the important one. If I press that one time, you'll notice that I've got some options. So I can message that if I want to send that website to somebody. I could send it with through an iMessage. I can send it through an email because, and it does come in handy. I have a good friend who I did not realize was looking for a dog as well. And I mentioned something about finding this breeder, and next thing you know, she wants one too. So I sent her the information, and now we are friends that live close by and have sisters who have play dates. So if you, I know it's fabulous because one of them's not so bigger than the other, and it's wonderful. So I'm going to socialize my dog. So if you want to message somebody, so I want to message her this link, I could do it there. Or if I wanted to send it via email, I could do that or set a reminder. But one of the things that I really like about this, it says right here, you have options here at the top, and you have these black and white or gray and white options down here. I could copy the link, I could print out the website page, or if you go down here where it says add to home screen, you see that option? If I add to home screen, it's going to, and click add right there, now I have a link to that website directly to it. So I don't have to type in that web address every single time. So if you go to a website frequently, a specific website that doesn't have an app, or you might not even want to look at it through the app. Sometimes I don't like the way they format the app, so I don't like the way it looks and sets up, so I could go directly to it that way. So I will show you that one more time. Let me get back to the home screen. Okay, so I'm going to go to Safari, and then right up at the top, you'll see it flash when I click on it. The rectangle with the up arrow, did you see it? Right here. When I click on that one, right there, and there's the little, you have several options at the top and the bottom. I was down at the bottom of the box. Whoops, I hit the wrong thing. And then if I press add to home screen, it will add it as an app. The other option that I could do if I didn't want to put another app on my page, I could actually bookmark it so that I can get back to it easily once I launch Safari. When I get into the web browser, Safari, I could just bookmark it and then I wouldn't have to have a separate app. But I did that with a website at my daughter's school, the lunch website. I made it a separate app so that every morning, because we're so organized and we do everything the night before, every morning I can click on the app and say, what's for lunch today? And she decides whether or not she wants to buy. The plus next to it just adds another unopened or untitled page. And you can close out all the websites at the top by just clicking on them. Click right there on the X and you can close it out. Right there. And then the page that was behind it will show up afterwards. It will show you what was up there before. And then if I want to click right there, if I click done, if I click the two rectangles, kind of one over the top, that's going to show me each individual web page I have open. So I could click these little X's and I could close them one at a time if I wanted to. So that's going to show you all of the different, and I am notorious for having a million web pages open, one behind the other. I do that all the time with both my iPad and my iPhone. I'll show you. Look at that. These are, well, I only have 3 open on this one. That's a miracle. But I have scrolled down through there and I swear there have been 50 before. It's really not necessary. You don't have to close them out, but it can get cluttered very quickly. So you might want to do that if it starts to really get overwhelming and look overwhelming. Okay, so the first thing I want to do, or the next thing I want to do before I move on is see if because I think I've covered a lot really fast. So if you have any questions about anything specific, because I think I addressed your question about adding something to the home screen.
I have a question if you go back over. I managed to dim my screen so I can't read it.
Okay. If you just press the home button 2 times quickly, it'll give you the,
Again, all the apps.
you should get the control center right here. And then you can, right here, up and down. Okay, I can show you at the end. I can work with you on that. Now down at the bottom is the dock. And that's where you're going to have your apps that you use most frequently, you will store in the dock. And it does not matter what page you scroll to on your iPad. The apps that are down in the dock are going to stay with each page. So those that you use most frequently, you want to keep down in your dock. Now you'll notice I've got a faint line here dividing the two. I have unplugged this about 5 times. You'll notice I have a faint line dividing the two. So the 3 to the right there are just what I had recently open. All of those to the left are apps that I have down in my dock. You used to be limited to about 5 apps down in the dock. I kept counting today at like 9 or 10. I was experimenting with it. So I can just move it, you hold the app until it releases. You'll notice when it releases, it kind of gets a little bit bigger. See how it increases in size a little bit? And then I drag it down to the dock and then let it go. You can drag multiple apps down into your dock. And as you do that, you'll notice the other apps just shrink to accommodate it. Let's see if I can put another one down in there. Now, I will tell you this one thing about that. If everything's important, nothing is. So you've got to just bear that in mind. If you clutter up your dock with so many different apps that it becomes counterproductive, then you don't want to do that. You want to put them back out. So again, to drag them out, I will just slide them right out. Because I don't need that many in there. Now, one of the newer features down in the dock that you're going to see is Files. If you click on Files, it's going to show you what you've had open most recently, or it's going to give you, I don't have my iCloud Drive on, it's going to show you what you have in here. So if I've got on my iPad, I could click it, open up, see what it is. I don't have a whole lot on here. Like I said, I did back this up from iCloud, but I've had this iPad about 3 weeks. Because my old one was just ancient, and I thought, I can't use that thing at Westminster Canterbury. So I told my husband, I need a new iPad. So it was an excellent excuse, which he turned and told me, well, that's your Christmas present. So I said, I'm not sure I approve of that, but I had to give in on that one. So if you click on the Files tab, that's going to let you, that's kind of like a shortcut to browse to different places within your iPad or different on your Drive. Files that you may have saved on your iPad. In Google Drive, I use Google a lot. Google Drive does have apps. I use Gmail, so I will use Google Drive quite a bit. And it's going to be something that I actually use Google on my laptop. I don't use Safari very much. I use Google because I use Google Drive so much. Google Drive is just a good way to share files, you never lose anything because if your computer crashes, it's web-based, so you don't have to worry about losing something you've typed up. It's just something that I like to use. So you can tag files, but the folders is just a way that you can go through and search, and that's going to be down here, and that's with iOS 11. That's the newer operating system. So if your iPad is running on an older operating system, then you may not have some of these features work the same, or may not have some of these features at all. Now, sometimes you'll find though that the older the iPad, the older device, they won't support the new operating systems very well. They get to a point where they don't support it. And so you've got to be a little careful what you put on there, how you upgrade it from time to time. There was something else I just thought of that I wanted to show you before I moved on. Okay. Any questions about that? Now, a lot of your customizing is going to be done in settings. So here's settings right here. That's your little gearbox. So if I click on settings, did you see that little notification drop down from the top? I had a little thing drop down from the top a second ago that said Snapchat from Catherine, that's my niece, probably sending me a picture of her dog, because she got a dog a few weeks after I did, named him Thor. He's a golden retriever, and I was like, oh my goodness, she named her dog Thor. And then I remembered that I named my dog Leia after Princess Leia from Star Wars. My daughter did, so I guess I can't give her a hard time for naming him Thor. So this is the settings app, and in here, a lot of what you can do in the control center, you can also do here. I could turn on airplane mode here. I don't typically do that because it's easy to get to in the control center. Underneath airplane mode, you'll see where it says Wi-Fi right there. This is where you could choose a location. Or choose a Wi-Fi network that you want to connect to. Those that are visible. Sometimes there are private networks, like the one at my school where I work. I have a private network, so I have to know the name of the network to type it in, and in that case I would go to other. So these are all people right around here who have their Wi-Fi, and some of it is security enabled and some of it is not. And you'll notice this is the same person. They have a guest network that does not have a secured Wi-Fi, and that padlock is going to tell you if it's secure. Do not go to Panera and start your online banking or something that you don't want seen by the general public. Don't ever use public Wi-Fi to do private things. So I do not use that. What I will do sometimes is use the network on my phone, use Verizon as what's called a hotspot if I want to do something like that. But we're not going to go into that today. But you want to make sure that you use a secure network in order to do anything private. So all of those with the padlock are personal networks, so you won't be able to access those. But if you pay for the Wi-Fi here, you should be able to get onto the resident Wi-Fi. And then this is the Bluetooth. I have my Bluetooth on pretty much all the time. If you don't need the Bluetooth, don't turn it on because it drains your battery. It's another thing that adds a drain on your battery. If you have an iPhone, for example, and you have the voice in your car, you can talk over the speakers. I don't know why all of a sudden I can't think of what it's called. You have to have Bluetooth on because that's how it connects. But you don't have to leave Bluetooth on all the time. In fact, I don't even need Bluetooth on right now, so I'm going to turn it off on here because it will just drain my battery. But the iPad has an excellent battery life. I really do like how long the battery lasts. Notifications, if I turn that on, this is going to show me what kinds of notifications I'm going to get. So if I was to click on one of them, for example, if I turn off allow notifications, that means that I'm not going to have messages dropping down from the top of my screen or popping up in the middle of my screen when I am doing something else. So you can turn off notifications for your apps. You don't have to get a message from it. And there are some that will send you messages constantly. News sources, generally, if you turn on notifications, you'll get them constantly. And if that's not distracting, that's fine. But there are times when I don't want to be buzzed or dinged or otherwise disturbed because it can be distracting. If you're in the middle of having a conversation, like I have an Apple Watch, if I'm in the middle of having a conversation and my wrist starts pulsing because the watch is going off, then my instinct is to look down at it, which would be rude. So you can turn off notifications. You don't have to, but you can. And to get back, notice I went into notifications for Facebook. If you go right here to notifications, click on the back arrow and that will take you to the other apps again. So you can turn them off. So there is another one right there. There's another notification popping in from the top on Messenger. So I could actually turn that off so that I don't get any notifications. So now if somebody else was to send me a message through Messenger, I would not see it on my iPad unless I go into Messenger and look at it. So you might want that, just depends on what you're looking for. You can get into the control center, that control center that I showed you that has all the different options. One of the things I like about it, you can customize what you see. So I could turn off, I could remove the timer, I could remove the camera. I don't want to because I like having those as shortcuts. You can change the text size. You can add that. So there are lots of different controls that you can do to it. So if I want a quick way to change my text size, I can do that. And it's going to show up. I could add the stopwatch. So if you click on the green plus, it's going to add it to include. So now if I go into my control center, you'll see now I have some new apps over here. So now I have the text size. So the default is to be kind of middle. I could change it to larger or smaller, which is getting very important for my age. And then we've got the timer, stopwatch, so you can add different apps, or you can customize your control center rather, so that you can see what you want to in here. I could add notes, screen recording, whatever I want to add to it. And then of course you can control do not disturb right here. I'm not going to because I've already got it in my control center. But what I like about it is this sets up the options of how you want to set up do not disturb. So if I turn it on so it says scheduled, notice from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. my iPad should not ding or carry on. Now the nice thing is you can do that with the phone as well, but the nice thing is if somebody calls you like 3 times in rapid succession, it will ring through because it recognizes that's an emergency. So it will kind of override do not disturb. So I have do not disturb turned on from 10 to 7, so I'm not going to have anything waking me up. Nothing dinging in the middle of the night that will wake me up. You can also customize who you are allowed to be disturbed by. So there are some people, of course, that are going to be an exception to that rule. Close family members, children, that kind of thing. General is where you look for software updates. This is also, if you go to About, that's what's going to tell you about your iPad. I have if you have too many photos on here, 5,742. So I need to get rid of some of them. But then it'll also show you the capacity, how much room your iPad can hold or what your iPad can hold, the Wi-Fi address. So that is not really anything major that you'll need to know, but that is under General. General is going to be where it's the need to know app. That's what's going to tell you what you need. Display and brightness, this is where I can also change how bright my screen is. Again, not necessary because I can do it from the control center. So like anything else, there's more than one way to do just about anything. But this one is handy. If you go to Wallpaper, you can choose a new wallpaper because you may not want the default ocean scene that it comes with. You might decide you want a picture of somebody. So if you say choose new wallpaper, it's going to give you the option to choose them from some of the pre-selected shots that they have in there, or you can go down to your photos and you can choose a photo to do it from there, to change it to. So you'll notice my daughter took a selfie right there. That's my wee one right there in the middle. So I could change it to her if I wanted to. Sounds, this is where you can change your ringtone if you want it to be different. If you don't want it to, you want a different sound for it to come through. I know somebody I knew changed it to a dog barking one time, and I thought there was really a dog barking. And that was the notification. So every time at the same time the dog barked and he needed to take his medicine. So it's going to tell you, like if I have new mail, if it's not on silent, if I don't have my iPad on silent, if I have a new mail come through, it's going to ding. Or if I send an email so that I can tell it's gone through, I press that and it will swoosh, it will be gone. Now you don't have to customize the sound, but it is a good way to do it. For my father, it wouldn't do any good anyway, because he wouldn't be able to hear the difference between them. Which, by the way, I have to tell you a little side note, I got bells for my dog, so we know when she needs to go outside, she goes up and rings the bells. My dad can't hear them. So if I take her over to his house and she needs to go out, I don't know what we're going to do because he can't hear the bells ringing. So I was like, oh, Dad, this is going to be a problem. So that's why I didn't want her scratching up my door, so I taught her to ring the bells instead. All right, Siri. Hey, Siri. I love Hey, Siri. So if you are under Settings and you click Siri in Search, Hey, Siri. This is one of my favorite little tricks because you can just say, Hey, Siri, and it will wake up Siri. So you don't have to press the home button. You don't have to look down at it. You can just say, Hey, Siri, and it will launch Siri for you. So I have it on there. The only thing is anything that you say that sounds like Hey, Siri is going to launch your phone. I've done that before. So I like Hey, Siri. I keep it turned on. all the time. I'm not going to go through setting it up right now. Press home for Siri. I want that on there. That's where you press and hold the home button for Siri to be enabled. And allow Siri when locked. So you could turn that off. If you didn't want somebody to be able to access Siri from your iPad when it's in lock screen, you could just turn that off and it would. Then you can change your voice. If her voice, I had a friend one time whose Siri's voice drove her crazy. So she actually changed it. You can change it to British, Australian, male or female. So if you really want to live on the wild side, you can change it to British or Australian. I'm not sure how that handles like words that if it matters, because you know there are different words that we use that they don't. And then I'm not going to go through some of that stuff. I don't think it's really necessary. Touch ID and passcode, that's where you go through and add your fingerprints. You can enable Apple Pay. I don't have Apple Pay set up. I certainly don't have it set up on my iPad because, I mean, you could use it. Yeah, you can use it when you're shopping online, but I'm not going to take my iPad to the store with me and scan it up against the thing, my big giant iPad. So you can set up Apple Pay though, and that's just a more secure way to pay, kind of PayPal-ish. All right, and then we've got the battery. Just tells you can turn off the battery percentage. So if you don't want to live mystery with your iPad, it will just tell you how much battery life you have left up there in a percentage. iTunes is important. This is where you can, if you've got Touch ID enabled for all purchases, so if I wanted to buy an app, I don't usually pay for my apps, I will tell you that. There are plenty of free apps. I typically don't buy them. But if you wanted to buy a song or buy an app and you have Touch ID enabled, that means if you click on purchase, all you have to do is put your finger over the home button and it will pay for it rather than typing in your Apple ID password every time. So if you allow Touch ID, and I do that because so if there's a song and I go to the iTunes store, if there's a song I want to download, and I find the song in the iTunes store, and then once I find that song, I will click download, buy, and it will say press the home button, Touch ID, and it will purchase it rather than me having to type in my password every time.
Do you
Yes,
go
ma'am.
through, do you have to put your bank number?
Do you have to put your bank number?
And for Apple Pay?
You'll have to put a credit card. You would have to put
You
some
put
kind
your
of way
credit card.
to pay in there for it, yes.
So how do you
You'd have to set it up in there to do that. And that's right down here, Wallet and Apple Pay. So you'll notice under iTunes and App Store, Wallet and Apple Pay, if I put Apple Pay Cash, which probably is like I'm guessing, I haven't done it, debit, or underneath that you can add a credit or debit card. I will tell you, for me, the dangerous thing about that kind of thing is it's very easy just to press purchase and then you just, next thing you know, you racked up $20, $30 in charges. So, you know, you just want to be judicious with it if you set it up. But I feel like they can't even get your passcode, so I feel like it's secure. Apple is very particular about encryption. Just make sure you don't do anything over public Wi-Fi. Yes?
No, that's my question is, for security, when that's out there, if you lose your phone, somebody else could.
If you lose your phone, somebody else could get to it. Well, that is why, I will tell you this too, that is why you can erase your phone from a computer. So if you sign into your account, you can erase your phone, you can reset it, lock it out, but that's why you have the passcode. But you can reset it to factory settings. You can lock somebody out of it. My sister watched her phone driving down the road. She left it in the bathroom. She had just gotten it. She left it on the bathroom counter. And she ran back and it was gone. And so she got on her computer and tracked it. And sure enough, it was gone. Like somebody was driving down the road with her phone. So they turned it off. Now once they turned it off, she couldn't locate it anymore, but for a while there they had it left on. Now there are a few things, I've only got about 4 minutes, so there are a couple things I want to go over, some things that I really like. I personally really like, if you're looking for cheaper gas prices in town, I like an app called Gas Buddy, because that is going to show you the cheapest around. That's just one of my favorite apps. So it's going to tell you where your cheapest gas can be found, which is not, I mean, it was there, you know, when gas was over $3 a gallon. I was using this constantly. But it'll tell you right here what the cheapest prices are around. And it's always using your current location to find them. So if you're driving, the other nice thing about that is sometimes you get on the highway and you're driving and there are no gas stations. So if I pop up, it will tell me how far away, how many miles away something is before I find it, before I can find it. So that's one of the apps that I really like. I set up my mail through the app, but I have a Gmail account and I just added it in here. Now Meredith would be horrified if he knew that I had 5,276 unread messages in my account. He is definitely, they had that one time on Facebook where they had, are you this kind of person or this kind? The person with 0 emails or the person with 10, 15,000? And mine's gotten as high as 15,000 before. So Meredith would be horrified if he saw that. But there are multiple email accounts under this. So if you'll notice mailboxes, I have got multiple emails. Oh, not on this one, but I do have multiple emails set up on my phone. So because of that, I actually have 6,465 unread messages on my phone because I have multiple accounts going into it. So you can add a new account if you want to on there. So there's the email. And then of course down here I've got the camera, which I use all the time. So it just depends on what's important to you. I have Facebook in here. I use Facebook all the time. My niece says that's because I'm old now. She says only old people use Facebook. And I was like, well, excuse me. Because they use Snapchat all the time apparently, or Instagram. So I still use Facebook all the time. And so that's one of the apps that I have readily available for use. And then there was another one this is one that I personally adore. Find Friends, it's called. Now, they have to agree to switch with you, but you'll notice that there is my dad and my sister. So if I want to know where my dad is, I can just click on Dad and it will locate him, and he's at home right now, so I know where he is. So I noticed though, because if I was going on a long trip, my dad would call me 5, 6 times, see where I was, you know, if I'm driving 12 hours, he wasn't calling me anymore. And I said, Dad, why aren't you calling me? He said, because I can see that you're in Pennsylvania and you're driving down the highway and I see that you're just fine. So he uses that all the time to stalk me when I'm going on a trip now. I love my daddy. He's a good guy. So you can add, but if you go into the App Store, you can add any kind of app. But one of the things I like about it, you don't have to know the name of an app to know what you want. If you know you want a notes app, some kind of notes app, you could just do a search and type in notes, and it will give you all of the different options. Some you pay for, some you don't. If it's free, a lot of times it'll be free up to a certain point, like you can do in-app, what's called in-app purchases. So you could buy more memory, or you could, games often have in-app purchases, but these are all the different note options that you have. And some of them you want to make sure that you do for iPad. You just want to make sure that you've got them, but typically they work on both. But the App Store is where you go to get your apps, and the iTunes Store to download any music if you wanted to do that. All right, it's 11 o'clock. So we need to wrap it up, but if you do have any questions, I can hang around for a minute and feel free to come ask if you have anything specific. Otherwise, I enjoyed being here today, and thank you for having me.
Thank you.